Okay, so welcome everybody to our Creative Arts Therapy session. I'm Sarah Balascio, Board Certified Art Therapist at the Wellness Center at William & Mary. Today we're going to be focusing on watercolor. Each week we'll be doing a different medium. Last week we did drawing. Coming up, I want to say, is collage. Then we have an eco art coming up, as well as I think I recently added a weaving. So each week I have to read our waiver. So here it goes. You'll see it doesn't really apply. In order to make these classes as freely accessible as possible to our participants, we'll be using a verbal warning and assumption of risk at the beginning of class. Participation in this online class is voluntary. Physical activity programs may result in injury, and by participating, you assume the risk of injury that may result from your participation. We strongly recommend that you participate from a space that is suitable for this activity. For example, make sure that you have moved nearby furniture and other potential hazards. If you're participating in a yoga class or a class that involves laying on the ground, we recommend using a mat, or if you don't have one, a carpeted area. Participants are encouraged to stop if they experience pain or injury and should seek appropriate medical advice or care as needed. William & Mary Health and Wellness strongly recommends that each participant have an annual physical exam and follow the advice of your healthcare provider. So as you can see, it's not super related, but we have to read it. Let's see. So today we're going to be focusing on watercolor, and I wanted to start with the basics. So I wanted to go through some different options. So a lot of us know of the kind of standard watercolor set. I'm not sure what people have. Feel free to, we have a nice little way of connecting when we're on video, which is the chat. So feel free to chat throughout. I do love the connections, and I don't like being teacherly like this. So I have, I have like my kids' basic watercolor set. I saw like Lynn had a more advanced kind of maybe 15 or so colors. I happen to have this. I'll show you down here. Let me know, give me a thumbs up that you can see my stuff. I have this interesting sort of travel watercolor set I was given that I love, but you really only need like even the basic ones that come along. Oh, thank you, Maz gave me a thumbs up. With, use standard you would get in school. So there's this watercolor type of set. I wanted to go through the different variations. Now this is a new kind of fun thing I've been exploring, which are called watercolor crayons or watercolor colored pencils. And what you do with these is similar. You can, I'm going to do a little scrap for you. You can take the actual watercolor colored pencil or watercolor crayon, dunk it in the water, and color with it like this, or sketch a lot, and then take your brush and blend it. So there's lots of these neat variations out there right now, and I want to give a shout out to Michael's has curbside pickup, and they've been great. So if you get into watercoloring and you want to try something different, think about watercolor crayons or watercolor colored pencils as well. And then another option, even kind of like a step up from that, this is watercolor paints. And so what you would do with these is put these onto some sort of palette or a paper plate, and then you can similarly mix them on the palette. I'll show you with this right here. Say this is a paper plate or something. You would put a little bit, oops, there's a little bit of oil sometimes that comes out. I haven't used them in a bit. Say on a palette like this, or a paper plate. You don't need anything fancy. And then you would mix and apply to your paper like so. So there's a variety, but I always encourage even just the basics. of just your usual like 8-color set. And next I wanted to, so those are the different options as far as actual paints. So what you need for watercolor is water, can't do it without water, a brush, and I wanted to go over brushes here with you. It's hard because I can't quite see you, but I think you guys can see me. So this is more of an acrylic paintbrush, and you can, oh, thank you, Maz. You can tell because it's stiff, right? Versus a watercolor paintbrush, which is more like almost like a makeup brush. It's much softer, like feathers, and that's because it soaks up the water. So that's the difference. So know that when you have these soft bristles, that they're for watercolor, and the stiffer is more for like acrylic or even oil paint. Now, I wanted to go over how to apply it to the paper. Really quick, I just want to see if anybody else is in the waiting room. I feel bad. I don't want to leave people out. I don't know how to see it, though. I'm not good at it. Okay. Oh, cool. People wrote comments. So Maz has watercolor pencils. Very fun. And Sally has a palette with a lot of colors. Neat. Okay. So I'm assuming that if there was people in the waiting room, I would see it. But all right, so those are some basics. Next, I'm going to go back down and show you some technique before we get into our project for today. Sorry, I see Maddie says I have nothing, and that's okay if you didn't bring watercolors. You can use any medium when I eventually describe what our project is going to be today. Okay, so. Like I said before, it's helpful to have a tissue or a paper towel. I have found tissue is the best at, if you ever make a mistake, it really like soaks it up really, really well. I don't know why, but tissues are the best. Okay, so the basics of watercolor are that the more water you have, the paler the color is. And so the less water, the more vibrant, right? So like right now, I'm going to take my brush with very, very little water and touch it to my watercolor cake, and you'll see how red, how vibrant, right? Now I'm going to water it down. I hope you can see this. Let's see. Water it down a bit, and it's very pale. Okay, so see, that's the same exact color, but just with a lot of water versus less. Cool. So what I wanted to show you is that often you can then also just blend from what's already on your paper. And let me show you an example. Say I made a big mistake and got like too much water and it got really out of control and I didn't like it. This is how I wanted to show you with the tissues, how it's so helpful. Is that, see that? It pretty much makes it disappear, and especially tissues. I don't know what it is. But now there's fun techniques you can use. One, you can apply lots of water ahead of time like this. Watch what I'm about to do. Now this makes it go all wackadoo and you don't have control. And that's kind of fun to explore. Maybe if you're a very like type A person, that could be a fun exploration. All right, so lots of water, and then you just put down the colors and see what happens and kind of spiral them and see that and play with them in the water. So that's the lot of water technique. And then the opposite, where you kind of mix and make the colors you want on your palette. Say I want an orangey red, mix them over here, or on just actually the top of like the basic watercolor kit. I do that a lot, or you can get a plate. But my biggest thing about being an art therapist, different from being an art teacher, is that, and you guys probably hear me say this all the time, there's no mistakes. I feel like, you know, everything can be turned into an interesting something. There's no right or wrong. And what was his name? The famous painter with the big gray puff of hair, mistakes. And he said there's no mistakes in art, only happy little accidents. And he did the trees. What was his name? Bob Ross. Thank you, Sarah. She wrote that in the chat. Thank you. Bob Ross, he really said it best. Like, there's no mistakes, just happy accidents. They all, like, you know, It's all good. We're just experimenting and playing. All right. So so that's like the kind of wash technique I was telling you, and it's kind of fun to just watch it develop and be abstract with it. Another technique, say you were doing something more specific, you wanted to make a purposeful line, you could mix on your palette here and then apply it to the paper like so. Okay, so those are some basics, and if you wanted to have a lot of fun with this wash technique, a neat thing to do is to apply salt, and it makes it scatter because the water and the salt, like, I don't know, stay away from each other, and that's kind of a neat experimental technique. So I saw somebody said they have watercolor pencils. So just like I did with the crayons, those of you that have the watercolor pencils, which I love, they're a real treat. If you feel like treating yourself during this quarantine and you're like, you know what, I need a new hobby, I need a new something. Oops, Michael's curbside pickup, watercolor pencils, tons of fun. So you would do the same thing where you would just draw with the pencil. I thought I had some at home, but I feel like they're at the Wellness Center. So you would draw whatever you want to draw, and then take your brush and blend it. Okay, say you were filling in a section of something like this triangle or whatever, and you wanted to give it some color, you just lightly shade it and take your brush and see, it really makes nice, like it blends things really well, as you can see there. Oh, don't do this. Don't hold it up to show your friends because it will drip. It will drip everywhere. So again, I'll show you how neat you can pick stuff up if you feel like you made a mistake. Look at that. So it's forgiving. So in art therapy, we talk a lot about the spectrum of materials that we use, and watercolor is very blendy, loose, and flowing. Now, some people don't like that, but some people think it's fun. You can kind of just play with it, okay? So remember that this is just some people's first time, and so go easy on yourself. So today I was thinking of a fun, if you ever come to my regular art therapy groups, there's a faculty and staff one and lots of ones for students. I usually offer a theme. I also, or a medium to work with. So today we're working with watercolor. I was going to admit one more person from the waiting room. I'm glad it pops up for me. Okay. So today's theme, I was thinking, because I love to, this part is recorded, just so you know, but you're not on right now. So I love to work using watercolor with landscapes. And I was thinking of this theme today called The Power of Place. Okay, so for me, what is very soothing is the mountains. So I'm going to start and show you some techniques of a landscape with the mountains. So that's my place. That's not what feels comforting or even powerful or soothing for you. So it could be maybe your happy place. I know a lot of people find like the water very soothing. Maybe you grew up in the city and you find, like, cityscapes soothing, and that's actually really beautiful to watercolor because it's a lot of like linear lines and fading inside of shapes, kind of like I did with that triangle. So think to yourself for a minute, like, what is your place? Like, what is your place in this world? Or alternatively, like I said, maybe it's just a happy place, maybe it's where you came from, or maybe you're just not feeling like getting that in depth today and you just want to explore with the watercolors. It's all fine. I like to offer a theme and you can kind of take it or leave it. And so what we'll do from here is I'm going to flip over my paper. I'm going to kind of show you some of my techniques with the watercolor in doing my landscape. Now, you're welcome to follow along or explore on your own. And then eventually, like I said, I'm going to turn the recording off and we'll be able to interact more if you feel comfortable. It's lovely to put on your camera, take your microphone off, and all connect. And then at the end, what we'll do is everyone will have the opportunity to share if you like to share your piece. This is generally how my art therapy groups go. And that part will not be recorded. So I'm gonna just show you briefly some more techniques and how I like to do my landscapes in my power of place, which is kind of like a mountainous region. I didn't grow up in the mountains, but for a while we lived in Vermont and my children were born there. And something about being in the mountains, I feel is really grounding. I think it gives me perspective because they feel so big and it makes me feel that sense of perspective. So let me show you as we get started. I gave some introductory techniques. Now remember, if you don't have art supplies, go ahead and start thinking about or if you don't have watercolor supplies, I mean, go ahead and start thinking about your power of place and where you might like to sketch or whatever medium you have in front of you. So I have here painter's tape. I'm not going to do it, but some people choose to make an outline with painter's tape or masking tape so that it has like a super straight border. That's really pretty. I'm not going to do that today, but I did forget to sort of mention that when we were going through the materials. So like I said, I have my water, tissue, and my paints, and all I'm going to do is start with my ground line. So I'm taking some greens, and you'll see I'm going to make my mountains. And I probably won't spend the whole time recording. And it's not really that fun to just sit around watching me paint. I have really enjoyed being able to work during this time, but truly my favorite part is actually interacting with people in my classes. So it's a little different. And now, so that's my first layer of mountain, if you can see. I'm going to do another one behind it. It's fun to do each layer like a different color. And you can see it blended. And that's okay, that looks good too. A beach would be really pretty to do. Shout out to my friend Lynn. I know she goes to the beach by her house all the time for walks. So whatever is your soothing place. And then I just kind of fill them in. And say I made a mistake or something. Again, you just grab that tissue quickly and kind of sucks it right up. There's something really relaxing about the flow of watercolor for me. Now, I know, like I was talking about the different mediums in art therapy, some people don't like watercolor because it can go out of control and go cuckoo and you can't stop it. But that's where that tissue comes in handy. So I'm going to show you kind of a basic landscape here. And then I'll turn the camera off because there's enough is enough already with me yakety yakking here. And we can all kind of work together. It's nice to do art in a group, even if we don't talk all that much, but just to have the company these days. So I like to do these kind of layers of land or mountains here. I'll come up and do my next one. Feel free to write in the chat if you're doing an exciting place or not. Just focus on your painting. Enough already, right? And so you can kind of intermix areas with lots of pigment. See, like there, I just put a big blob, and that's okay. You just spread it out. Or if it's too much, get back that tissue. But it looks good. I mean, I just feel like even making it not perfect looks good. So I'll just keep filling this in. And it could be, you know, also not realistic colors. That's kind of fun too, to play with. I love that so many people joined today. I guess it's helpful when they put stuff in the digest, huh? Okay. And if you enjoy this, and we're back together in the fall, there is a staff and faculty creative arts group, and then lots for students. And then in the summer, like we're doing now, it's just kind of everyone's all mixed into one. So as you can see, this is kind of the start of my mountainous landscape. And then it's beautiful for creating the sun. Say you were doing a beach scene or even a cityscape, you can still have that sunset. So I like to pick one spot to use like my most vibrant yellow. You can see there. And then blend up from that, right? So with some of these warmer colors, the oranges and the reds. Making sure no one's in the waiting room, I think, at this point. We're good. And so then I'm going to start creating my sky. There's something just so soothing about blending the water, I've always felt. So I hope you're enjoying it too and not being hard on yourselves. But I think what I will do, as people are kind of getting to see some of my landscape painting here, is to show you where I'm at for now. Obviously, it's not done. I would continue filling more layers of the sky as well as the land. But this is my place, as I called it, the power of place, is in the mountains. And at this point, what I'll do is stop the recording and we'll be able to interact more freely and share. But I hope you've enjoyed this lesson and look for more on the Virtual Wellness Center. Thank you. Let me turn the recording off. Oh, why do I not? Okay, stop.